Hello and welcome to another reading vlog. I'm Chanel and I read books. I read a lot of books. I read a lot less than I used to. That is intentional and it is just much more manageable. So I think around 30 books is like the sweet spot for me where I don't feel too overwhelmed with the amount of extra work I have to do. So this week I have started reading The Will of the Many. From what I've gathered in the 50 pages or so that I have read in this fantasy book, you have a main character named Vis. And in this world, people's will is sort of siphoned for energy. And people that are prisoners, for instance, are just used as batteries, it seems like, and they age and they wither very, very quickly. And only the elite get to not only keep their own will, but also use the will of others. And the will, it seems to also be used in some sort of locking mechanisms and seals, so they only work through someone putting their will on there. It's a little bit confusing, I'm not going to lie. The world building is a bit confusing and I don't quite have a good grip or grasp of it yet. The main character, Viz, I'm going to say it, at the moment, he's a little boring. He's a little lackluster and he's very sure of himself. He's told us a million times that if they knew his real name and his real background and what he was really doing, they would kill him. So he keeps reminding us of this, but at the same time, he's going out and doing public fights where he's fighting people who have will, and he's meant to not. He's meant to be siphoning his will to others, but he's not doing that. So he's maintained his will, and he's going into these fights and he's beating people and he's bringing attention to himself. So I'm like, why though? For money? And then it's like his money is going to some orphan nun where he grew up because he was an orphan. So he's paying her off for some reason. I don't know. The bit that threw me was when it was revealed that he's 17 years old. I was honestly flabbergasted because this guy is reading like a 30-something-year-old man. So when they were like, oh, he's 17 and he still lives at this orphanage with this nun, I'm like, does he though? Does he? Is he that young? He doesn't come off that way. It doesn't come off that way. So I'm not sure how I feel about it. At the moment, I'm probably leaning towards the DNF because I'm not really invested. Like the writing is fine and it's interesting, but it hasn't really pulled me in. So I'm going to give it, I'd say, another 50 pages. And if I'm not invested, I will put it down and move on to something else. But I'm going out today. I'm heading into the CBD. I want to try out some cafes. I want to hopefully get to this very famous patisserie called Loon, where people line up for over an hour to get their croissants because supposedly they're that good. I'm obviously on a time crunch because I do have to get back to pick up my children from school. So if I don't get the croissants, I'll try another day, but I'm going to give it a go since I'm going to be in the CBD anyway. And then I'm going to go to the library for a library haul and I will show you what I pick up from there. I'll touch base with you when I get back. Hey, so I am back from the CBD. So Loon, I got very lucky, short line. I managed to grab some goodies, haven't tasted them yet. And then I went to Dame, which was really pretty, really aesthetic, really kind of posh, but not with attitude. A gentleman who sat next to me started chatting me up. I wasn't interested, but yeah, it's very hard in that situation when they're right next to you. The conversation was fine. I just, I was kind of reading my book and I wasn't really attracted to them, but they were very persistent in like keeping the conversation going. So I did that. And luckily I had a timer on my phone when I had to leave and that went off. So I was like, I'm sorry, but I've got to go. But it was nice to have someone actually talk to me. So that was a nice experience, but it wasn't a romantic connection. So I've just gone to the library and I've picked up this children's picture book called Ploof. Like, how cute is that? I've got Every Night of the Week Veg, since like me and my kids eat vegetarian at home. Playing the Witch card. So I think this is about tarot. I can't help myself. If there is a fiction book about tarot, I'm going to try it out. Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. So I read her previous book, can't remember what it was called. Didn't mind that, but this one was like super popular at the library, very long wait. So I thought, okay, let's see what the hype's about. Know nothing about it, but we'll see how this goes. Green Dot, once again, don't know anything, saw the cover, grabbed it. And Better Hate Than Never. So this is a sequel by Chloe Lisa, and I liked the first one, so we'll see how this one goes. Good morning, guys. Sylvie always has to come and hang out with me whenever I film, don't you, Papa? Hey? So I read Ploof, the kids' book. I'll put a few pictures up above. I found it a bit basic and simple, but it's an interactive book, so it gets the kids interacting with the book and doing activities. And my 9-year-old absolutely loved it. So that was a big hit for us, and I guess kids-wise, kids will love it. Parents, it's a bit boring to read, but it's all about the kids at the end of the day. I also read the Veg Cookbook, and I did end up tagging a lot of the recipes. I think my kids, who have very bland and I guess safe tastes, they're not very adventurous culinary-wise. I think they would like a lot of those recipes. So there were tons of pasta recipes and like pizza and tarts and things. They did it from scratch though. And there's no way this mama is making pasta from scratch. So I will try the recipes out. And if, I like any of them, I'll put them up on my other channel, on my monthly wrap-ups. But I did actually bookmark quite a lot of the recipes in that one. So with Will of the Many, I read, I think, 120 pages. It's a over 600 page book. It's very substantial. And I did decide to DNF it. The magic system involving the will was just very confusing and dry, and the main character, Vis, he really was as boring as a piece of blank paper. There was just nothing exciting about him besides his anger issues. He did not read as a 17-year-old at all. I much preferred the Quintus that had adopted him. He was quite interesting, but I can't read a book in a main character's POV that I find incredibly dreary and uninteresting. And because the magic system was so confusing, sort of convoluted, I thought, no, I'm not going to push through another 500 plus pages because, like I said, there are millions of books out there waiting to be read. And if something hasn't excited me by 120 pages, it doesn't matter how amazing the other 500 would have been, it's not going to get a 5-star, because any book that takes over 120 pages to actually be interested and get into it is not a 5-star book. And I'm really wanting to spend my years on this earth reading books that make me feel something, or that I think are phenomenally written, or the stories are lush and delicious. So I did DNF that one. And then I picked up Playing the Witch because this was meant to be a cozy read involving tarot cards. And I looked at the ratings on this and they were quite low, and I thought, why are they that low? I understand it now. So unfortunately with this book, the main character is just such a curmudgeon, just so cranky and pessimistic and complains. And she's not a likable character. And she's just constantly talking about how she doesn't want to follow in her family's footsteps and she doesn't want to read these tarot cards, but it's just repetitive. It becomes very repetitive. And a lot of the other characters in this book are also just really unlikable. Its pacing is incredibly slow as well. So it's trying to tackle the themes of perhaps, family obligations and lineage, and not wanting to follow in the footsteps of your ancestors, and trying to carve your own path and navigating life as a divorced single mother, and not feeling like you belong and feeling pressure to please everybody else. But it just wasn't entertaining and it was a slog, and I did end up deciding to DNF it. despite having magical themes, it just wasn't very magical. The next book that I read was Darling Girls. By the way, I crocheted this. This is one of my latest crochet projects. It was Darling Girls. So this is by Sally Hepworth, and I decided to give it a go. I really do need to be more careful about reading trigger warnings, because for me, I can't stand, in a contemporary setting, child abuse and animal abuse. Those are my two things that I just don't want to read about them. They make me feel yuck. They pollute my soul, so to speak. And in this book, it's heavy on the child abuse. So you've got 3 girls who are foster kids. They are sisters because they were fosters in the same house, belonging to this woman. I think her name was Holly Fairchild. I think that was her name. And it was a house of horrors, pretty much. The foster mother was insane and abusive and loved making up all of these ways to hurt the girls, but in a way that if the girls told adults, they weren't really taken seriously. Like things like getting a bar of soap and shoving it in a child's mouth and putting your hand over the child's mouth until the child is literally having bubbles coming out of their nose and is suffocating on the bar of soap. Like it's just so yuck to read about. It was just left me feeling awful and horrid, and I kept thinking, these aren't even real kids. Chanel, like, get the empathy away. These aren't real kids. This is fiction. So this is my issue with books like this. I did rate it 3.5 stars because I know for a thriller, it's a good thriller and it's written well and it's a very compulsive read. The chapters are short and you just want to keep going through. You kind of just want to see this absolute monster brought to justice. And there's also a murder mystery involved, like bones of a child are found beneath the orphanage. So you are curious enough to keep going. But yeah, I can't stand reading about children being hurt. There is a massive twist at the end that I did not see that coming. Holly Fairchild is just the worst. The worst. That character, oh my God, makes me sick. Makes me sick, and there is no amount of justice. There is not enough suffering that the penal system can inflict upon her to make up for the suffering that she has caused others. Let's just put it that way. But I think other people would really love this. It's just because it involves abusing children. I'm never going to rate something like that really highly because I don't like the subject matter. So yes, going forward, especially with thrillers, or any books that are in a contemporary setting, I just need to make sure no animals, no children are being hurt. For some reason I can stomach that. In fantasy, I don't like it still, and it makes me feel awful, but in a fantasy setting, it's just so far removed from reality that it feels like I'm just watching like a movie. But I couldn't watch that on a movie though. That being said, can't watch movies that hurt animals. Cannot do it. But yeah, this week, I'd say the best book that I read was probably the cookbook. Because even though Darling Girls got 3.5 stars, like I said, it left me feeling a bit yuck, even though it was obviously gripping to read. And obviously Ploof was all right, but yeah, it was a bit of a dud week. And when that happens, it starts to make you question your ability to choose books to read, you know, because I'm the one that's choosing these. But that being said, sometimes it just doesn't work. It doesn't click. It doesn't fit. Even if the theme of the book is up your alley, or the writing style is something you like, or the characters you like, sometimes it just doesn't work, you know. And I have to accept that with being a reader, you're going to pick up books that are just meh, you know, or that you don't like and you have to put down. But the good thing is there's always another book to pick up and another book to try, and the next book you read could be your favorite book of the year. I think that's what really keeps you going. Like, any book that you pick up could be one that forever leaves an imprint on your soul. So I'm not upset about it, you know, like, it's fine. But that is everything for this week. Until next time, stay wild, Star Child.